Okay, we're going to start with who's here because you are on time. I'm Diana Graham, and I lost my house in the Oakland fire in 26 years ago. 91. 92? What? No. 91, we moved to Moraga in 92. Yeah, 91. So that's why I think everybody should have a plan and some preparedness supplies, hopefully, and have an awareness, particularly of the hazards that are in our area. So that's what we're going to talk about today. First, I'm going to put in a plug for the Red Cross, because that's who I volunteer with. The Red Cross has 180 chapters across the world, or countries that are involved in this. They use different symbols. Some use the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, and I found out that that is the red crystal. That's another sign some organizations use. There's 117 million volunteers across the world. I work with the American Red Cross. There's also an international Red Cross that the American Red Cross supports. We send people, when we're asked to other countries sometimes. And we've been involved in a lot of different disasters. Even our own Alameda and Contra Costa chapters have gone off to, deployed to help others across the world. The Red Cross does a number of things that you may not know about. We have service to the armed forces. We help service members and their families in times of emergency. As I said, we support the International Red Cross. We provide blood services. We provide about half of the blood that's used in the United States. We have a youth services program that involves high school and junior high groups to support our mission. They're very helpful in a lot of areas. They help with community events. They learn how to be prepared themselves so they can help their families. I'm part of health and safety. That means that I help you learn how to be prepared, and we are also going to offer hands-only CPR after this class if you want to learn how to do that. And then we, of course, are most known for our disaster cycle services. We put up shelters. We respond to every house fire in Alameda County to see if people need help. So it's really quite a big job. Now, let's get down to business. Can you tell me what you think might be a problem in this area as far as disasters? What comes to mind? What else? Fire. And you know, there's two kinds of fires. There's the fire where your house burns down, and the fire where your neighborhood burns down. So you have to think about both of those things. So we've got the earthquakes, we've got the home fires, we've got the wildfires. The interesting thing is I was talking to the Contra Costa County Emergency Services, and their list is slightly different than this. Their list, it starts with earthquake, but then goes on to landslide. They've had a real problem in Contra Costa County in the last years with landslides, and also floods. I don't know if you've heard about the Great Flood that killed 1% of California's population in 1841. Now, there wasn't a lot of population in 1841, but the entire Central Valley was flooded, and also Sacramento was underwater for months. They had to move the government to San Francisco, so it must have been later. I can't remember the year, but it was quite amazing flood. So those are some additional things that we have to worry about. Also tsunami. Emeryville is a really great place to not be during the tsunami.
We also have a lot of reservoirs.
Yes. Dam breaches, which would cause a flood as well. After Oroville, I think we can all realize that we're not immune to that kind of activity. The old presentation, this is the first time I've given the new presentation. The old presentation started with make a plan. And I like that because I figure if you don't have a plan, you won't need a kit. So the new one starts with make a kit. And if you have a kit at home that you haven't looked at in the last 5 or 6 or 10 years, when you get home, you probably should take it apart and look at it. There might be some things that need to be replaced. The Office of Emergency Services people said, but you need to be informed first. Because if you don't know what can happen, then you can't make a plan. So they would like to see this reversed. Okay. Get a kit. So, what do you think you'd like to have in your kit? Now, you have to think about two things. In case of an earthquake, you might have to stay where you are. You might be stuck there for a week. If you are in a wildfire situation, you have to evacuate. So you might want different things in your evacuation kit than you have in your stay-at-home kit, or stay-at-the-office kit, or stay-at-the-car kit. Now, I'm obviously paranoid, but I have several kits. I want to have something to eat when the time comes. So can somebody tell me what they would like to, what they have in their kit? Oh, how many of you have a kit? I'm preaching to the choir. How many of you have a plan? I guess we can work on the plan. All right. So tell me what you'd like to have in a kit. Absolutely. What's the first thing? Peanut butter. Well, that's...
Food to sustain you for 24 hours, at least 1,000 calories.
3 days. 3 days. We're going on a camping trip at a dry campsite for 3 days. And we're going to put together stuff to take with us so we'll have everything we need. And that's how one of my co-workers explained it to me.
Medications.
Absolutely. You should always, if you take prescription drugs, you should always have in your wallet or someplace where something you always have with you, a list of your medications and the dose rates. Because if you get to the shelter, the Red Cross pharmacists can help you. If you don't have a list, they can't help you.
You also need to have a rolling suitcase to put all this stuff in.
Rolling suitcases are good. If you backpacks are good too. For a smaller kit, a go bag, something where you can keep your hands free, because you might want to we might be walking through stuff that you may have to move things out of the way in order to get through it. So I really recommend a backpack. This is actually a kit that is in my car, and it doesn't. Also I have a a laundry basket full of clothes and shoes and other essentials like that. But this is something that is easy to grab and take with me if I want to.
Solar power radio that can also recharge your phone.
We'll go through these shortly. So, as you said, 1 gallon a day per person for 3 days. Non-perishable food. If you're going to do canned food, either get the zip-top cans or get a can opener. Medication is very important. And also, these are some of these things you have to rotate out of your kit. Getting a kit is not a one-time event. Getting a kit is a continual process, because as your needs change, you may need different things in your kit. A first aid kit. This is my first aid kit. Flashlight and batteries. And the thing with the flashlight is you don't want to keep the batteries in the flashlight. You want to put them next to the flashlight or in a bag with the flashlight, because they'll corrode eventually if you keep them in the flashlight and don't use the flashlight. And are ever popular, and I want every one of you to go and buy one of these, because this way you will have radio no matter what. It's got a crank. The new ones will charge your cell phone. It's solar powered. It'll take batteries and you can plug it in.
You have ones with the QED that you just fried.
Yeah, well, or you can, yeah.
Also, if you have pets, you want to...
Yes, include your pets in your plan. You have to do that. That's a very important item. Some more things. An external battery pack for your phone. Some more things are personal toiletries. I have these wet wipes are good. Anything that you can think of that you're going to need if you're stranded, essentially. Go ahead.
Clothing?
Yes.
Clothing and jacket.
I have, well, that's in my laundry basket. I have a change of clothes. I have a pair of closed-toed shoes. I have a jacket. All of these things that I might need if I'm stranded someplace. And that's why I have them in my car. I don't have to worry about that at my house. At my office, I have a change of clothes. I have closed-toed shoes. I have another kit. I can't anticipate everything, of course. If I'm sitting on BART, I may not be in as good a position as if I'm sitting in my car. But if you have a plan about what you're going to do, then you can think about what to put in your kit. Oh, we get to make a plan. The thing about the plan, well, when my house burned down in the Oakland fire, the kids and I were at church here, and my husband was at home, and we didn't have a plan. Now, you may think that you will pick up your cell phone and call whoever you want to call. But as the people in the North Bay fires can attest to, that's not going to happen because the cell phones aren't going to work. But if you have made a plan ahead of time about where you're going to meet, who you're going to call, then you'll be in good shape. It's called a reunification plan, and that is on the next slide. On this slide, we'll talk about, but you do the same thing. You got to sit down with people. I can't make your plan for you. You have to sit down with your family members or anybody that you want, who you think wants to know what happened to you after a disaster, and talk about what you're going to do. You know, sometimes people have special needs, and you may want to think about your neighbors and what you might be able to do for them if there's a disaster. We have a neighborhood organization, so we know everybody. We know how old their kids are. We know, who's 90 years old and might need some extra assistance. So we just have to think about those around us. And you assign a role, and you work together on making a plan. For the plan for your home, you need to think about how you're going to get out. When you walked in here, did you think about exits? Well, where are the exits? Okay, what other way could you get out? Yeah, go out the window. You know, this is something that people don't really think about. But if you sat down in a room and looked around and said, oh, I only have one door out of this room, but this window over here, I wonder if I could get out this window. And if you live on the second floor, you have to think, how am I going to get out of this place and down to the ground? And if you think about that ahead of time, you can equip yourself with something that will allow you to do that. Meeting places. I especially think you need a meeting place right outside your home so somebody doesn't go stand in the backyard and somebody that's standing in the front yard runs back in the house to save them when they're already out of the house. That's why you have to all meet at the same place. And you don't want to go back in the house for any reason if it's on fire. You can call from your neighbors. Grab your pet on the way out the door. Outside the neighborhood, this course says you should plan a place a couple blocks away. I'd give it a mile or two. Because if there's a wildfire, you're not going to stop a block away to meet. You're going to be running down the road, or hopefully driving down the road. So think about the eventualities and how you might want to reunify when you've been separated and you have no contact. And tell everybody, you can go on the Red Cross website, which is redcross.org, and print out little cards that will allow you to put all this information on a card that you can keep in your wallet. It's easier to do it on the website because then you only have to put the information in once, and you can print out as many cards as you like. Doing them by hand is more tedious. Out-of-state contact. Why do you think you need an out-of-state contact?
They're outside the quake zone, hopefully.
And it's easier to get through, I've heard.
Right.
And making local calls. So like, my sister lives in Danville, I'm going to call my brother in Ohio, she's going to call my brother in Ohio.
That's exactly right, and that's what you put on these cards that you hand to people, because then they can call the out-of-the-area contact and don't spend a lot of time trying to get a hold of you when they're not going to be able to do it. Now, what do you need to do after you have your plan? Practice. If you don't practice, you don't have a plan, because you won't remember. Go out and stand in the place. Go take all your family members and go stand in the place you're going to meet outside your house. Take a field trip to the place you're going to meet if you have to reunify and you can't get in touch with each other. Then when the time comes, you don't have to think, because I can tell you for a fact that your brain will turn off. I had a fireman explain this to me, and he said that all the blood runs to the core out of your head. And that's why, literally, you can't think. But if you've made a plan and practiced the plan, you will do that, and that will make it easier for you to stay alive. We're really talking about staying alive here and staying comfortable.
We have a real issue in my neighborhood, there's overhead wires, and, some people will think, well, I'm just going to go outside, but I know, it's a tough call.
Yeah. You have to assess the situation, preferably beforehand.
Yes.
This is something I added to the presentation. I was told I could add things. you have to talk about, as we said, what are you going to do if you're at work and your partner's at home? And there's an earthquake? Are you going to try and get home? Are you going to be able to get home? Are you going to be prepared to stay where you are? Sometimes people do really dumb things because they think they have to get somewhere. And they really don't. They can stay where they are and be safe, and that person's safe. You know, if you have kids in school, they have a plan, and would have your meeting place. And the whole thing is, if you know what everybody's going to do, then the stress level on you is tremendously reduced at the time, and you may be able to sit down and think clearly about what you need to do, because you know they've already thought what they're going to do.
What is the usual plan at a school? If there's a big earthquake, do they shelter in place usually?
If the school's okay, they can shelter in place. Also, at least at our school, we signed cards up with other people who could pick them up. If I couldn't get home, one of 2 or 3 other people could pick them up. And you have to, it's a reunification situation, and so they have to have somebody's name to do it. You can't just call your friend and say, could you go pick him up? You have to plan. That's another thing to plan ahead of time. Be informed. Well, we talked about this. One of the things that always happens when there's a big disaster is there's all kinds of rumors. And most of those rumors are not true. So you need to be able to keep in touch with the broadcasts that are telling you what is true. We have broadcast stations, and I don't think you necessarily need to know the numbers, because when you pick up this radio and turn the dial, they're the only ones that are going to be on. And any other radio station is going to be telling you where to go to. But I really think these crank solar radios are good.
I have been in and out of planning in my neighborhood
Yeah.
for a long time now, because one of the things that never could get resolved is handheld not radios, but walkie-talkie type
Yeah.
things, because the terrain is very difficult for many of these
Right.
devices. But do you know that, I've heard that there's stuff that will be quite usable in our area, but I haven't heard that it's actually come out. Do you know anything where that's?
Well, the ham, if you want to go, getting a ham license process isn't as hard as it used to be. But that won't help your inner neighborhood things. I do have what they call the family radio, and some of the other people in our neighborhood do. But we're in Moraga, you can't get out. But the Moraga put up a repeater. So the next level of radio up between the ham and there is another level, and I can't remember what it's called, but there is now another level that can use the repeater to get out of Moraga. And it can also get around Moraga a lot better, because everything else is line of sight. Well, the ones that there's ones that are handheld ones that have a very low frequency and won't go over a hill. It's all line of sight. It's all line of sight, and that's what you're talking about. You have hills and you can't get around them. So you might want to look into it again. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not in the radio group, so we have a very big radio group in Moraga.
I was wondering I see internet, social media, and I've heard from a lot of people that, Facebook has a check-in feature, and then, like social media is first, texting is second, and phone calls are third. Is that right?
Well, the problem is you may not be able to get to the internet. If your cell phone's not working, you're not going to have any of this other stuff either, because the power is probably going to be off. Red Cross has this thing called Safe and Well, and once we have shelters up, we have Safe and Well. You can register ahead of time on Safe and Well. It's in the book. There's books on the back, and if one per household, please. They have a lot of really good information about that sort of thing. But yeah, we have Safe and Well, and you can post on Facebook from Safe and Well, so other people can see you. The problem is, when you don't have any power and you don't have any telephone, you have to figure out how to get someplace where you can have those things. We certainly want you to take first aid and CPR. It's really important to have at least one member of your household trained in something, so they can help everybody else, or your neighborhood even. Earthquake safety, there's some things in this book. There's a book called Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country. You can get it on the internet. Just type in Putting Down Roots. There's 2 versions. There's an old version that is specific to the Bay Area that is very good. I really suggest that. Charles has shown me this, the Association of Bay Area Governments has earthquake information, like what your risk is, a particular fault, from a particular fault, your personal risk at your house, and you can do videos of this beautiful expanding risk zones from the Hayward Fault, the South Hayward Fault, which is nearest and dearest to my house. Yeah, as long as it doesn't do anything, it's fine. So,
It's earthquake A-bag.
Okay, so just type in earthquake A-bag and you'll get to these. And the shaking maps are very interesting because, you know, if the San Andreas Fault goes, Moraga's fine. If the South Hayward Fault goes, Moraga's not fine. And, you know, our house is black, which is the worst you can get. So it's just really interesting. Alameda County alerts. You need to sign up if your cell phone. They'll call your landline, but if you haven't registered your cell phone, they're working on this. They're going to hopefully have it so that it will be able to get use GPS to tell whose phone is in the area and call that phone if there's a problem. But it's good to have it registered with the site.
Are you saying it does work with cells or no?
It does if you register. You just go online and give them your number and they'll call you.
Are they connected with Nixbase?
Nixel?
Nixel?
Yeah. Nixel's different. There's different levels of alerts that go out on this. Then I learned all this at the Office of Emergency Services. There's different levels of alerts that go out on the alert system than Nixel. Nixel does certain things. They don't do everything. It'll go out on Nixel eventually, but it won't go out as fast as this.
And so what about Contra Costa?
In Contra Costa, we have the same thing. I have the number, but you can just look it up. You have to register. You have to register.
The website for Contra Costa?
I have it. I can give it to you after. I forget that it's not just me that lives in Contra Costa County. I have a special presentation for Contra Costa. What do you think we respond to most? Red Cross responds to most? You're right, house fires. So we're going to talk about home fire safety. The thing that's going to save your life, I thought that was, have I lost a slide? No, I haven't lost a slide. The thing that's going to save your life at night is your smoke alarm. And Red Cross is doing a campaign, and if you need new smoke alarms, or even if you're not sure you need new smoke alarms, they will come to your house and install them for free. And that is the website that you sign up on. Pass that around. It's a really good service. If you wake up in the middle of the night and your smoke alarm is going off, what are you going to do?
Take out the battery.
That's probably the first thing you're going to do if the house is not on fire. Well, if you get one of these new 10-year smoke alarms, that battery will last for 10 years. You'll never have to change it. And then it has got a hush button. So if you're cooking something up in the kitchen and your smoke alarm goes off and you know the house is not on fire, you can push that button and it'll be silent for 8 minutes, giving you time to clear the smoke out of the kitchen. And I think that's the best feature because then you don't take the battery out. And they used to put them too close to the kitchen and they would go off all the time and people would take the battery out and then they didn't have any protection. Now we put them in each bedroom and each hallway that's going to a bedroom. And if you have a room where people sometimes sleep, you put it in there too, like a playroom or something where you might put a guest. So let's go back to getting to the smoke alarm in the night. What do you do?
Probably get up and investigate.
Yes, but how do you get up? You roll out of bed onto the floor, because if you stand up, I mean, especially if you can smell the smoke when the smoke alarm is going on. If you stand up, you're going to put yourself right in that smoke, and if you go roll off the bed onto the floor, then you can crawl to the exit. What if the door is shut? What do you do? Well, if you're not sure the smoke alarm is a real alarm, yes, keep it shut, but test the door with the back of your hand. It burns less easily than the front of your hand. If it's hot, don't open it. If it's not hot, you can stay down and see what's going on. The thing is, most people die at night from smoke inhalation. They don't die from the fire. And it's because it's a silent killer. Most fires start in the kitchen. Most home fires start in the kitchen. Most deaths do not come from fires that start in the kitchen. Most deaths come from fires from things like electrical cords. You know, we all have too much stuff in our house now. Our house wasn't designed to have 47 computers and televisions and whatever we got. Make sure your cords aren't hot. If you've got, especially an extension cord and it's hot, go out and get a heavier capacity extension cord. Or get another plug, put it in another plug. Space heaters, too close to flammable materials, things like that. That's what starts the fire at night, and that's what kills people. And once again, we talked about smoke alarms, and test them every month. Well, he says every 6 months. We tell people to test them once a month. We figured by that, if we tell them once a month, maybe every 6 months they'll test them. What other emergency situations can you think of? Well, we did talk about some more. We talked about earthquakes, our number one favorite. They had a 6.9 earthquake in Hawaii, along with the 6-foot-high lava flow going down the street. At least we don't have to worry about that. What do you do during an earthquake? We're sitting here. What do you do?
Cover your head.
Very good. You guys already know. Drop, cover, and hold on. And there's some other information here I think that's kind of nice. If there's nothing to drop and cover with and hold on, try and get up against a wall so that the stuff that's in the middle that's going to fall down isn't going to hit you in the head. You're trying to protect your head. And that's why the lady's got a book over her head and neck, because she's in a wheelchair. She can't drop. And this is what happens when there's an earthquake. Now, if I had that bookcase, I'd have it attached to the wall. But they didn't. And even if it had been attached to the wall, all those books would probably be out on the floor. My sister-in-law had an earthquake in El Centro, and they fortunately were not home at the time, but when they came home, all the cupboard doors had opened in the kitchen, and everything was on the floor. So you don't want to be there for that.
Diane, one experience I had with a friend in Santa Cruz when the home hit, all the stuff did what you just said, and there's glass all over the floor, and she couldn't walk on it to get out of the house. It was all covered with glass, and I read somewhere that we should have leather shoes under our bed or somewhere, so we could not wear our athletic shoes, which are rubber on the bottom, and the glass would just cut right through it. What do you think about that?
You need a pair of closed-toed shoes. I'm not going to say they have to have leather soles, but you know, you can probably do. You just don't want to get up in the middle of the night with glass all over the floor and walk across your bedroom floor where all the French door window came in on the floor. You want to have something to put on your feet.
The only time I was ever hurt in an earthquake, it happened in the middle of the night, and I was in bed, and I leaped out of bed and landed with my hands and knees on the floor, and I bruised my knees really badly. It wasn't that bad.
Well, see her? See what she's doing? She's laying there, the best place you can be if you fixed up your house. And if you have a picture hanging over your bed, I want you to go home today and move it and put it somewhere else. You do not want to have a heavy frame coming down on your head.
And you have very strong, properly designed wall hangers.
Yes, there are. And if you want to risk your life on that, go for it. I personally moved the picture across the room so I can look at it when I'm lying in bed. It's very pretty. It looks much better over there. We have this nice fabric wall hanging above our bed, which hopefully will come down and cover us when the time comes.
I know someone that put baby latches on their cabinets.
Yes. That's an option. If you can stand and have baby latches on your cabinets, then it certainly will help preserve your stuff. You can also use the things that you have in knickknacks you have sitting around. You can use museum putty to attach those to the shelf so they won't fall off. There's a number of hints in some of these other publications. There's a lot of good stuff on the internet that you can look at. Now, I have a little problem with this slide because, okay, they're outside and they're doing just fine with what they're doing, but if I'm in San Francisco, what am I going to do if I'm outside?
Be under tall buildings.
You're going to run inside. You're going to get inside. No matter if you're crawling down the street, you're going to get inside. No, no. Back in the day, when they built adobe houses, they had wooden door frames, solid wood. Around here, most door frames are a decoration. They put them wherever they want. They move them when they remodel the building. And what else do you have? You have a door, which is going to come back around and hit you. So now we say, do not stand in a door frame. I'm glad you brought that up. Someone usually does, and I don't. Yes, it's not a good thing. But this raises the power line issue, you know. You have to find a space where you think you're going to be okay, and with power lines, it's really tough because if they come down, they whip around and, you know. My feeling in California, if you're in a relatively recently built building or one that's been retrofitted, like the sanctuary's been retrofitted, that you're much better off inside than you are outside. Certainly if you're in a place like San Francisco, do not run outside. If you're going to run out, if you plan to run outside, if that's your plan, to run outside, then you figure out where you're going to put yourself when you get there that's safe, because there may not be a place that's safe. You know, trees are going to fall down. We got big trees, and where are they going to go? If you're driving, pull over and stay in the car. Hopefully nothing will fall on you that's big enough to crash your car in. After an earthquake, check yourself and everybody else around you for injuries. Make sure nobody's trapped. And this is where you're going to get your radio out, which has been sitting, one of them has been sitting on the counter in the sun, so it's nicely charged. And you have batteries to back that up. And listen and find out what you're supposed to do. At this point, you can decide whether you want to evacuate the building. You can assess the situation and see if there's a better place for you to be than where you are. But be careful. It's all, you know. What can you do today? Well, you can make a plan. Please do that. You can start your kit, or go look at your kit and see whether you need to replace the food and water that's been expired for the last 5 years.
Talk to your spouse.
Yeah, talk to your family members or your spouse or your friends. Sign up for a CPR, first aid class. If you've never had CPR, it's a lot of fun. How many of you know where our AED is? Yes, did you know we had an AED? There's an AED in the hall of entrance. So if somebody falls over in front of you and they're not breathing, we'll talk about that in a minute. Practice your escape plan. Now, let's address this picture. What did she do right? Shoes and a flashlight tied to her bedpost. Now, why is it tied to her bedpost? Right, so they don't go under the bed and she can't find them. I have a little question about that picture. Yeah. So whether that bed's pushed up against the wall and it's too close to the pictures or not, we've had discussions about that in some presentation. But I have shoes and a flashlight next to my bed. It's not a big thing.
Now, I have extremely poor eyesight, and so I have an eyeglass container that is nailed to my bedside table that I keep my glasses in at night so my glasses won't go flying.
That's a really good idea. You know, and the thing about this, the other reason I think she has them in a plastic bag tied to her bed is so that she won't use them one morning when she gets up and can't find her shoes. And then when she comes back at night and doesn't have them there when she needs them in the morning. This has to be a pair of shoes and a flashlight that you just, and the batteries shouldn't be in the flashlight. They should be in a bag with a flashlight so that you have them there when you have to put them in. And I highly recommend this. This is a really low-tech solution to a very big problem if there's a big earthquake and you're in bed. Okay, now this is a discussion topic, and they didn't give me the answer, so we have to talk about it. I'll read it to you. You are visiting a friend who lives on the 10th floor of an apartment building. An earthquake of magnitude 6.4 strikes and lasts for 20 seconds.
You'll be dead.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully this building was built in California recently to code, and hopefully it stands up.
Go to an interior wall. Don't go by the windows.
Yeah, get away from the windows. And if there's a nice kitchen table right in front of you, what are you going to do? All right. What about after the earthquake?
Listen to the radio.
Do you, for sure, are you going to evacuate after the earthquake? Are you going to go outside? Maybe. I think that's the best answer, is maybe. You have to assess the situation. Pardon?
You have to assess fire.
You have to assess a fire risk. You have to assess what's going on outside. And you have to,
And it depends on the mobility of the
right. And
your
you're, right. It all depends.
Don't use the elevator.
Don't use the elevators.
And the aftershocks are going to be.
Yes, they are. So you can expect more things to happen, and you want to be prepared for that too. All right, this is a really interesting one, I think. You live in a one-story house with your spouse, a 3-year-old child, and a dog. You are in a bedroom taking a nap when the smoke alarm goes off. You are all in separate rooms. The door is closed, but you can see smoke starting to come under the door. So what are you going to do?
Get out of the window to the outside, and you want to also have a crowbar under your bed, which you can then use to break into wherever the child is.
Well, that's one of that's a suggestion that I have, is that you don't have to go through that door. But I would check the door to see if it's hot.
Well, smoke's coming in.
Well, smoke's coming in, but the door may not be hot, and you may be able to go underneath the smoke. But I agree. I think going outside to get inside again is a and you can use your garden furniture. You can use lots of things to break windows with. A chair works really good.
Got to get it so you don't cut yourself getting in.
Yes, you do.
Tell the child to get away from the window before you break.
Yeah, that too. Well, hopefully your child's not sleeping underneath the window, or it has. This is a very complicated scenario, and what the first few people I talked about this to said was, I would run to the door and throw it open, because that's what I would do, and that's why you have to think about these things ahead of time, so that you don't just react, because it may be the wrong choice. It may be a choice that's going to kill all you.
What if you were in a room that you couldn't get out of a window, like in our situation? Could you get a blanket and put it in the bathtub and get it wet and put it over you and then open the door?
I don't know how big the fire is. I don't know how close the fire is. We don't know anything.
Maybe open the door and crawl with the blanket over your head or something.
Well,
Once you open that door, it may be very difficult to close it.
it just depends on, if the door is hot, do not open it.
But if you have kids in the other room and your dog is someplace,
Then you go out and you can't get out. Well, if you open the window and you're dead, are you going to help them?
no, because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get out.
Most rooms in any reasonably built house in the last 50 years or less, you have to have a window
That you can get out.
that is an alternative to the.
So what floor are you on? What?
Well, we're up on the hill, and so if you go out on the deck, there's no way to get from the deck down to the ground unless you're a hummingbird, and there isn't any. We tried all kinds of ladders
They didn't work.
down, and they don't work. So I have to go out the door of my bedroom, go across to my den, and go out that window. If the stairway is blocked, or if the whatever, we cannot get out of our bedroom through a window and get around to the other side of the house.
You might want Red Cross to come and do a safety assessment for you.
Well, we would tell her that she would have to make an engineering solution, like something that goes out to the hill so you can get out.
Okay, well, ask our contractor what to do.
Because it's Dad's situation. You spend a lot of time in your house, in your room, so. Just,
I just was thinking, I usually charge my phone in the living room, so in our bedroom at night, there is no phone. Is that bad?
yes. I have a phone charger right next to my bed, and I just turn the ringer of my phone off, and I put my phone right next to my bed.
Yeah, face down.
Yeah, so that's the thing, I don't want to hear
Yeah, or you can just turn it off, but at least you'd have it. All right. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Other hazards. Well, we talked about these briefly. Floods. You are driving down the road and there's water running across the road. What do?
Turn around.
You bet. My husband was coming home one day when it was pouring down rain, and he saw a Volvo floating across the road. No one was there. The person had gotten out, but he turned around and went. Took him about an hour to get home, but it was okay. He was 5 minutes from the house by then. Oh well. But one thing, if you do get trapped, you try and get out. But the problem is, just don't get in that situation. It's a really bad situation. People die all the time. I used to live in Texas. I learned. Wildfires. Clear things from around your house if you can. Somebody said the thing that they learned from the North Bay fire was the first top 3 things were defensible space, and defensible space. And in some places that's harder to get than others. Safety tips. All I can say is you can't leave too early. You can leave too late, but you can't leave too early.
Were there people who saved their houses up in the North Bay fires because they did have, even though there was like a firestorm coming through their neighborhood, they could still save their house?
One thing that happened was that, especially with elderly people, is they couldn't get their car out of the garage because the electricity was off and they couldn't open the garage door, and they were trapped in the garage. So that's something to think about. Practice opening your garage door manually. If you've never done it, go out and do it, because you might have to if you want to get your car. If you want to take your car.
My neighbor installed a, well, I don't know if it would work because the electricity's off, but she has a remote thingy that she can open her garage door with. If she can't open it, I guess it's a backup battery. So if she can't open the door, she's not physically able to open her door manually. So she's got this doodad thing that she can open it.
Well, if it's got a backup battery, it should work even if the power's off. Well, that's something, it just depends on your situation, but you need to know how to do these things. I find this safety tips a little strange, the way they're ordered, because you've just left the house. But the other 2 things, the things that they say is take the furniture and stuff off the patio, because sparks can start that, and it's next to the house. Look at your plantings and see. I have a big rosemary bush that I'm going to take out because I found out it's really very flammable, and it should not be right next to the house. Probably shouldn't be. Put it in a pot. I don't need that much rosemary. But you can get these things to cover the vents on your house if you have time, so the embers can't come into your attic. Some of the newer things that they put in those vents are supposed to be spark arresting too. There's a Ready, Set, Go, which is CAL FIRE. That has really good preparation and what to do. Our local guy told me that he thinks the best thing to do on a red flag day is go visit your friends somewhere else. Because Moragas, there's just no way out, really. And I'm going to be doing more trips to my friends at the beach. Tsunami. There is a real tsunami risk here in the Bay Area. Richmond apparently has a risk, and Emeryville I know does because I looked at the tsunami maps. You can go and look online at the tsunami maps. Certainly, if the water starts to go out, go up the hill. That's what I learned in Oregon in school. If the water goes out, you go up the hill because it's going to come back, and you're not going to want to be there for it. Basic first aid. It's important to have recognize the signs of emergencies. One thing that people have is strokes. 800,000 people in the US a year. FAST. You may have already heard about FAST. Look at their face, see if their face if they smile, if any facial droop. Look at their arms, ask them to raise their arms and see if they can do it. Talk to them, and then if you were concerned about any of this, just call 911 and get an ambulance. Because nowadays, they can do something about a stroke if they get you fast enough. So it's really worth going to the hospital to see if it's a stroke, because it can help you get over it a lot better than if you wait a day or two and then show up. That's too long. Heart attacks. 1 million Americans have heart attacks each year. There's different symptoms. Women have different symptoms than men. It's just one of those things that you have to be aware of if you're feeling strangely that you might be at risk. Rapid irregular heartbeats. Well, I have that all the time, but it's not a problem. Any of these things can be of concern. What do you do? Well, the first thing you do is call 911. Under any circumstances, you call 911. Then, if you've just seen them fall down and they're not breathing, they won't respond, start CPR, and get the AED. The AED is an automatic external defibrillator. That means it talks you through what you need to do. It will not shock the person. If it doesn't, they shouldn't be shocked. It knows, it does an assessment, and it knows whether to give them a shock or not. About 10% of people survive heart attacks without an AED, and about 60% survive with an AED. That's how much better it is. That's why we have one here. And if you take CPR, you'll be trained on how to use the AED. And I really suggest it's worth the time, but one day of your life, to take CPR. We have a ton of mobile apps. All you have to do is type in Red Cross at the App Store, and you can get all of these. First aid, emergency, hero care, that's military. Hurricane, earthquake, tornado, swimming, pet first aid. And don't forget your supplies for your pet. We have information on the website about supplies for your pet. Blood donor information, transfusion information, and a cartoon that you can show your youth to help them get prepared. They had a great cartoon that they'd taken down for some reason. It was a 10-minute video, and I showed it to so many people because it just went through everything in 10 minutes. It was great, much less time than talking to me. So that's where you can get them. There's contact information. There's also contact information, I think, in those books that I'm giving you, or at least on the handout, which may have all gone. But getpreparedredcross.org. You can send them an email, and they'll talk to you. If you just go on Red Cross and type in "Be Prepared," you'll get to the right place. But I think the handouts that we have now, these are brand new handouts, and I think they're really good. They're much more easier to understand than the old ones were. And with that, are there any other questions?
About a year ago, I heard, and then I went out and purchased and Pastime Hardware, my sanctuary away from here, was delighted to carry them. They're straws. And you can put that straw in a dirty stream,
Oh, yeah.
an expired gallon of water, and it's fine. So I've got straws everywhere, and then I don't have to worry about
Keeping water.
changing
Changing
out those
out your water.
gallons of water.
Yeah. Well, what I've been doing lately is we drink apple juice that come in food-grade plastic containers. So every time I got 6 of them, and every couple of months I'd just go out and water the plants and fill it up again. I'm kind of low tech on my kit preparation. One thing that they didn't talk about, and what I have in my kit, some things. These are light sticks. These are really good. You just break them, and they've got 12 hours of light. I recommend that everyone have a whistle, because if you have a whistle, you can blow your whistle. If you're trapped and you don't have to keep calling out, it's a lot easier to blow the whistle. The other thing I have, I want to be dry. I have a poncho, and this is a sleeping bag. You see, you don't have to, I'm not talking about a big kit here with all this stuff. I'm talking about having things that you can really use. And this is a deck of cards. Because if I'm trapped, I can play solitaire, and if I'm trapped with other people, we can play rummy, or poker, or whatever. Because you're going to be bored. And the other thing I have in my kit that I didn't talk about these are gloves. Because if you imagine the scenario with all the glass, well, that's what you need.
I always have a small flashlight on my keychain, and I use that for a little creative, and I've kept one there ever since.
Yeah, it's a good. You can get a whistle flashlight combination.
Question, where did you get those little tiny, the poncho and whatever that?
I think I got them at REI. No, this is Ace Hardware. Ace Hardware.
Did you talk about a go bag?
Well, that's part of the kit thing. When you get making your kit, if you're thinking you're going to run down the street, you might have different things in it. And they don't talk about paper too much. You have to make sure that you have all your important papers somewhere. Well, they can be in the cloud. You can scan them and put them in the cloud. You can scan them and put them on a flash drive and send it to your sister in Michigan, who's my contact. You can do lots of things. Don't forget your recipes. If you have recipes you like, please back them up somewhere, because when my house burned down, I lost all my recipes. Very sad, but I'd given them a lot of them to other people, so they gave them back. Pictures, all that stuff, everything is absolutely gone. Everything that you own is not there anymore. And so which things would you like to have backed up, essentially? And you can do that. You're not going to do it all in one day, but you can do it over a period of time and have it there, and you won't have to do it again. Some of this stuff doesn't expire. A lot of it doesn't expire. If you do it once, you got it.
I have a question about water. My husband has this huge, I don't know, it's this huge container on the side of our house. It's filled with water. Does water go bad after a certain amount of months? Or he claims that, that's one of the solutions, is we go out to the side of the house. I said, but what if you can't go out to the side of the house? What if something falls, And anyway, do you think how long is the shelf life for water?
Well, there's various opinions, and that's something I would look up online, because I rotate mine out because it's easy. But if you're talking about something that's more difficult, it doesn't really. The flavor issue is more of a problem, I think, than the actual bad, can I make you sick issue. If it was clean and if it was tap water to start with. But I'm not going to tell you what the real answer is.
Thanks.
I would just recommend that the house fire issue, I teach English as a second language to adults, and on the internet, and I'm sure you've seen it, the test living room, where it shows in under 2 minutes, that living room is engulfed in fire. Because it starts as a little small fire next to the sofa, and then the curtains catch, and it's mind-blowing how fast that living room goes up. And if you've got anybody in your family that thinks it's not a problem, show them that video.
Well, it is it is, because we have different materials now. And what they estimate is you have 2 minutes to get out of the house. 2 minutes. How much time do you have to gather? 0 minutes. 0 minutes to gather. If your cell phone's in the living room, it stays in the living room. And you're not going to have it. So put stuff that you want to take with you in a go bag, someplace that you can get it out. Now, I'm not going to say that you're going to be able to get it. Maybe when your house burns down, you're not home. But you have to have everything that you care about, that you want to have backed up somewhere else. It's just it. Now, is anybody interested in learning hands-only CPR? It only takes about 5 minutes. Let me get my very helpful, because she will show you what it takes to do CPR. And I have 2 of them, so when we practice, we'll have to show you how to do it. The first thing that you do is you call 911. This is all predicated if you saw this person fall down in front of you. So you call 911 or you get somebody else. If there's 2 or 3 people standing around, you say that you call 911. And then you can start CPR faster. If you don't trust those people, call 911. You're not going to revive this person. This person is dead. If he's not breathing, he's dead. All you can do is keep him viable so that when the AED or the fire people come, he's still viable. They can resuscitate him. But just remember, if you stand here and say, oh, that looks like he's dead. He's going to stay dead. I mean, I don't want to put it any other way. So what you can do is you've assessed the situation. You've looked around and he doesn't have a power line hanging on. Because if he has a power line hanging on, you're not going to help him. Then you're going to get, the only thing worse than 1 victim is 2 victims. So you shake him and say, are you okay? Are you okay? He didn't respond. What do you do next? This kind of CPR, you don't do breath. There's enough air and oxygen in his blood, as long as you keep it running him around, to keep him viable. You don't have to give him breaths. If you're talking about a child, it's a different thing, that they probably didn't fall down from a heart attack. It's probably something else. And so you want to do some different things with a child, but that's why you want to take CPR, so you can find out all about that. What you want to do is you want to link your hands like this. Just in between the minutes, middle of the breath. And you're going to go 100 beats a minute. And you're going to do it like this because you're going to put all your weight on the job. Because it just if you're back like this, just trying to do it with your hands, you can't get the. And you're going to sing, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. Because that's how fast you have to go, 100 beats a minute. And you do this till the fire people come. When the AED comes. When the AED comes, it will tell you what to do.
If you hear something, you stop.
Yes, absolutely. If he says, what are you doing that for? If he starts to breathe, or he moans or whatever, but he could be actually breathing, with really short, gasping. You still do CPR if he's just gasping, because he's not real breathing. Yes, if he's awake, if he's just laying here awake, you put him in a rescue position, which is on his side. You put his arm out this way so he won't fall over. And you put his legs back so that he won't fall over backwards. This is because a lot of times when people have fall down, they have a concussion, and they'll vomit. And you don't want him on his back if he's vomiting. This is assuming you saw him fall down, and there's no other trauma that you can see. This is what they suggest you do. Now, you may want to just leave him on his back, even if he's awake, because you might be concerned about his neck and head injuries, but it's something to assess. Would you like to try it?
Diane, how long do you do that for?
You do that until the fireman comes, or somebody comes with an AED. And you know what? You don't have to do it all by yourself. You can say, Louise, come here. Come here, Louise. I need help. I've been doing this for 10 minutes now, and I can't stand anymore. Actually, 2 minutes. Not there. See how much pressure it takes. Thank you, Louise. We're going to go on. Look at me. But you know what? There was a woman walking down the Lafayette Moraga Trail, and she fell down in front of this lady who was walking her dog. The lady called 911, the dispatcher told her to start CPR. She'd never done CPR. She told her how to do it. The woman was in the hospital alive. Alive. So, this is last week, So you can keep somebody viable so that they can go back to their life. I had one in my class, and she'd been in the hospital, in the emergency room, and she went in cardiac arrest. And what they did was, one person would do a minute, and then the next person would do a minute, they switch off every minute until they got the AED. Because it's really hard work, right?
I have a friend in Walnut Creek who a man came down and found his wife on the kitchen floor early in the morning. She got up earlier than he did individually. He came down and found her on the kitchen floor, and he ran and called 911. And the woman on 911 said, "Run back, because if you don't give her CPR, if she doesn't have a chance." They talked him through the CPR on the telephone while he opened the door for the people to come in, the emergency people to come in, and on the phone they talked him through how to do this, and it saved her life.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds crass to say this guy's dead if you don't do something, but he is dead. And it's not, we're not asking you to give breaths anymore or anything like that. It's just chest compressions. And if other people are around, they can do it too. You don't have to do it by yourself. You can get help. The first thing to start doing, actually, is after you call help, start yelling for help. Help me, I need help here. Anyway, anything else I can try? It's not so fun. We got another victim over here. We have two people at a time. Don't be shy. It's good practice because that way you know how much you know.
this is supposed to be 2 inches. Anybody else? Well, this of course is not full CPR. This is just citizen CPR, just the chest compressions. You have to, when you don't have breathing, because we figure people will be more willing to do chest compression. And it works. Yeah, well, it's because you're not doing big breaths, you're trying to get the blood keep going around fast.
They got strong.
Well, that's possible, yeah, Joe.
Is this gonna keep the mosquito alive here?
So come down, you're kind of down, come down straight from your body. Just think about your shoulders pushing around.
I'll get help.
You get help.
Try to get the heel of your hand into this.
Lock your arms straight.
Knock your arms straight. Just your shoulders are doing the job. It's your whole body weight. You're just throwing your whole body into it. They say lace them.
Better, just relax. Is that better?
I do like this though. But it's up to you. Okay. You want to do something that you can actually make work. Now, Charlotte's giving you
It sounds like we
You guys want to try?
dog walk.
It's a good chance that you don't have much pressure